You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from Nvidia to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business for your Hot Options Report for Thursday, October 16th. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are binging, reminding you, if you're not subscribed to the full network, on wherever you get your favorite podcast, you are missing out on a whole heck of a lot of fun stuff coming your way. Speaking of fun, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Nothing but fun these days. Pro Q&As, oddities, fantasy football, giveaways, live streams, all sorts of fun. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, let's get down to business here on a smoking hot Thursday. Is it April? Is it April again, listeners? It feels like we're back in those heady, whipsaw-y markets of April, May, that type of time frame, late March, where we were moving 50, 100, 150 handles intraday in the S&P. Quite the range out there again today. We were up, then we were down, then we were up, then we were down. Ended up down again. S&P closing off about 0.2%. Dow, similar percentage. NASDAQ off about 0.5%. And our old pal VIX Cash coming back to life after kind of being dormant for a while. Getting north of a 25 handle. Listeners, just absolutely wild stuff out there in all things options. I mean, you're talking the danger zone at that point. That is Loggins territory out there, listeners. If you don't know what I'm talking about, by all means, check out Volatility Views. I got a feeling our buddy, Mr. Kenny, Mr. Loggins, might be joining us on Volatility Views tomorrow. And all this whipsaw action, all this upside involved, did that translate into a lot of upside in VIX options? Today, the answer was a resounding yes. 1.81 million contracts changing hands in VIX. That's against an ADV of just 750,000. So blowing the doors off that. And the hot option out there today, listeners, 73,000 of the Nove 18 puts. Average price for these, 82 cents. You like these? Is that how you want to play the vol fade? Or perhaps are you saying sold to you? There is OI on this strike, so someone could be closing on these, listeners. But interesting stuff out there. Not the upside you might expect. Actually, Nove 18 puts. As we keep on rolling out to the land of SPY, listeners, was it a banger day out there in SPY? The answer, most assuredly, yes. You know, if we're getting this whipsaw action, we're getting a lot of paper. SPY, 13.1 million contracts. That's against an ADV of just 9.1, so fully 4 million more contracts than we expected coming in today. So absolutely wild stuff. SPY ends up going out today 660.64, off about 0.2%, like we said at the top of the show. And the hot option out there, it was these 660 puts. Go figure. 660 puts, 414,000 contracts on the tape for those bad boys. Average price of $1.04. You know, on a day like today, a whipsaw day like today, you had multiple opportunities to put those on and take those off. We got much lower than this intraday. So certainly if you bought them for that average price of $1.04, you had some opportunities to make some money out there. Hopefully you were deft on the trigger finger today, listeners. Hopefully you didn't get run over. One of those days, listeners, it can kind of go either way. That's why we always say, and we especially mean it these days, stay safe out there. We say it at the end of every show. We mean it these days, perhaps more than ever. Let's go out to the SPX, listeners. You know it was a banger day in the SPX. 5.06 million contracts on the tape. That's against an ADV of 4.4 million. So over 600,000 more contracts going up in the SPX today as well. The S going out, listeners, right around 66.29. The hot option out there, 106,000 of the 6,600. So once again, the par puts lighting it up, $6.19. That is juicy for those bad boys out there, listeners. That said, they were in the money earlier today. So if you paid $6.19, you had opportunities to take those off for several times that at one point intraday, even if by the end of the session they were not looking pretty good. If you rode those through the close, that one's going to leave a mark. As we keep on rolling out to small caps, listeners, you know it was a banger day in small caps, selling off over about 2.1% in small caps out there, listeners, putting up 2.8 million contracts. That's absolutely wild out there. The ADV 1.7, that already is pretty inflated. Most days struggles to hit that. 2.8 million contracts, that's a banger. What was the hot option on an explosive day in small caps? 120,000 of the 248 puts. Average price for these, 63 cents. That looks like a screaming do right now, listeners. These puts went out worth about $3. IWM went out 245, so not looking bad at all on those, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to the Qs, you know the deal. Qs had a spicy day as well. 5.92 million contracts against an ADV of about 4.7. So over 1.2 million contracts additional changing hands out there in the Qs today. The Qs closing right around the par strike as well. 599.99 to be precise. How wild is that close? The hot option out there, I got a feeling it's the par puts, and that is the case. 178,000 of the par puts. Average price for these, $1.32. Same deal. If you rode them into the close, maybe you're not the happiest of campers, but you had myriad opportunities intraday, listeners, to get these off for better levels. Hopefully, you took advantage of these if you bought them. As we keep on rolling out to the single name equities. Was it a banger day in single name equities, listeners? The answer might surprise you because the answer, listeners, unfortunately, was not really. 565,000 contracts is all it cost you to break into the top today. That gets us to our old pal, Rigetti. Man, this name was all over the place today. Sold off to sub 47, got as high as north of $55. Ended up going out today, $47.97, off nearly 15%. So apparently they came for quantum computing today. The hot option in Rigetti, I got to imagine it was probably puts, and that is the case. 39,000 of the 50 puts expiring tomorrow. Average price for these, $2.61. They went out worth a little bit over $2. So if Rigetti keeps selling off, you clearly will have a good day tomorrow. And of course, you had opportunities intraday to take these off for better levels if you were so inclined. As we keep on rolling to number 9, SoFi. SoFi also coming back to earth a little bit today, selling off about $1.40, a little over 5%, closing 26.60 out there today, listeners. Again, putting up 590,000 contracts on the tape. The hot option in SoFi, 40,000 of the OCC 28s, listeners. A little bit of upside sprinkling in there. Average price for these, 35 cents. So a little bit of hopium sprinkling in there. It did get as high as 28.44 in that initial rally earlier this morning. So I have to imagine if someone bought those, they were picking them up around that time frame. And then unfortunately, they kind of turned to dust in their hands. Still a day to go. Anything can happen, but these 28s not looking great right now, listeners, as we keep on rolling to number 8, our old pal Intel, 608,000 contracts on the tape. Intel closing $36.84, giving up about 31 cents. So not a wild day out there for them. Net intraday, a little bit wider range, a high of 38.02, the low of 36.41 out there, listeners. And the hot option on an interesting day in Intel, 25,000 of the OCC 38s, once again to the upside. Average price for these, 44 cents. Looks like someone could have been bailing on these, though, listeners. There is some OI on this strike. As we keep on rolling to number 7, it's our old pal, the Monster, aka MicroStrategy. Closing today, 283.84, off nearly $13, or about 4 1/3%. So they came for the Monster today, putting up 690,000 contracts. The hot option out there in MSTR today, almost 21,000 of the 330 calls. You might say 330s. Get the heck out of here. But these are expiring next week. So maybe that makes them a little better. A week for the Monster to get back to 330. Listen, average price for these, $1.65. So they were not giving these away, listeners. If you're long a little Monster right now, you might be inclined to say sold to you on those calls for $1.65, and I wouldn't blame you out there. Either way, the Monster. Number 7, listeners, as we keep on rolling up to number 6, it's our old pal Palantir, 178.12, off about $1.50 today, or a little over 0.75%, putting up 717,000 contracts. And the hot option on a decently active day in Palantir, 55, nearly 56,000. Once again, this strike has proven fascinating for someone. The 185s, average price for these, $1.40. You might be saying, again, that's madness. $1.40 for the 185s when we're down at 178. And you would be right, but earlier today, again, in that rally, that head fake really caught a lot of people, it seems like. The stock got as high as 184.82. So those 185s for $1.40 certainly sound a lot better at that level than they do right now. So unfortunately, if folks are buying a lot of this upside, and if past is prologue, we know they probably are. It looks like a lot of people maybe got caught in that head fake earlier today. As we keep on rolling up to number 5, it's the fruit company Apple. 765,000 contracts on the tape. Closing today, 247.45, off nearly $2, or about 0.75%. Another one that had a little head fake earlier on before selling off. Did it catch some folks out here? It looks like the answer is yes here as well. About 75,000 of the 250s, the 2.5 calls, lighting up the tape today for 80 cents. Those not looking great right now. Then again, these could turn around by tomorrow's close. You need them to if you want these to pay off. But right now, it seems like a lot of folks, there was a lot of hope springing eternal earlier in the session today, and a lot of that's looking pretty rough right now. As we keep on rolling to number 4, keeping it in the A tech names, it's Amazon, closing today, 214.47, off $1.10, or about 0.5%. So one of the milder sell-offs out there amongst some of the bigger names, putting up 895,000 contracts up there today. And the hot option in Amazon today, 88,000 of the 220 calls. Once again, it's near-term upside dominating the tape. Average price for these, again, they're not giving them away, 90 cents for these 220s. And then once again, we flirted with them earlier in the session. 218.59 was the high earlier today. You were still rolling the bones, paying nearly $1 for those 220s, even at that level, but sure as heck looked better than where it closed out there, listeners. So a bit of a rough one out there today. Seems like a bit of a boulevard of broken dreams out there in the tech wreckage and a lot of the options market out there today, listeners. Folks rolling the bones for some upside, and doesn't seem like that came to pass. As we keep on rolling to number 3, keeping it in A tech names, it's AMD. 1.15 million contracts on the tape today. AMD closing 234.56, listeners, selling off a little over $4, or about 1.7%. So they're coming for AMD today. AMD flirted with some upside multiple times today, getting as high as 241.20. Let's see if someone got caught up in those as well. And the answer was yes. The hot option on a hot day in AMD, 107,000 of the 240 calls. Average price for these, $3.17. This is another one. This is a rough one, listeners. Obviously, you got a day tomorrow. Anything could happen, but you really need AMD to get out of bed to the upside pretty aggressively if you want these 240 calls for $3.17. Obviously, 243.17 is your break even there, listeners. You need AMD to really do some lifting tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on it on the hot options report tomorrow. As we keep on rolling to number 2, it's Tesla, 428 3/4 is where it went out, putting up 2.19 million contracts today. Tesla selling off a little over 6 handles, or almost 1.5% today. Let's see if folks got caught up in the madness in Tesla today as well. The answer, unfortunately, looks like yes. About 125,000 of the 440s. Average price for these, $3.03. You know the deal. We got up to 439.35. So these were effectively at the money calls at one point earlier this morning before they unfortunately weren't. 443 by tomorrow's expiration. Anything could happen. It is Tesla after all, but that would be a heck of a move. We'll keep an eye on it as we keep on rolling. Out to Nvidia today. Listeners, Nvidia, one of the lone names that bucked the trend out there today and seemed to avoid the wreckage, ended up closing up nearly $2, or about 1.1%. 181.81 is where it went out. So bucking the trend. Did get a little higher earlier the day, 183 and about a quarter. The low, 179 3/4. So it had a range today. Let's see if folks got caught up in some upside in Nvidia today, listeners. What was the hot option on a hot day in Nvidia? Lately, we've been seeing a lot of action on the 185s, and that appears to be the case again today. 205,000 of the 185 calls, listeners. Average price for these, again, not giving these away, listeners, 85 cents. That's a rough one. We got to 183 and about a quarter. Even at that level, 85 cents for the 185s might seem a bit rich, and certainly where we closed, it definitely seems rich. So can Nvidia get out of bed? Pretty much closing right around 186 for these calls to make a little bit of money tomorrow. We shall find out. That's going to do it for us on the Hot Options Report. Also going to do it for us on the network today. Good luck to all of our pro members listening out there right now. Fantasy football kicking off again for this week tonight. Hope your team does well, except for the folks that I'm playing out there, those folks that want no good luck for them. You want to join us? All the fun over there on the Pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro to learn more. And of course, join us back on the network tomorrow. Should be a banger on vol views tomorrow. I got a feeling our buddy, the Logins, will be joining us. Danger zone abounds. Should be a wild one. And then we'll see you back here after the close. Another episode of the Hot Options Report. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.